I was on my run this morning and I was thinking about this idea that I wanted to make a video about because there's kind of this false expectation on social media. If you've spent any amount of time online, if you're at all chronically online like I am, you undoubtedly have this desire to change your life. I think it's kind of the most beautiful, honestly, the most beautiful part about the internet, or the most beautiful byproduct of the internet, is it's allowed normal human beings to share their experience online. And as a result, it's meant that a whole group of people can then watch that and take something that in their mind may have previously seemed impossible or out of reach and made it seem completely realistic. And this has created this appetite or this desire for an enormous group of people, enormous group of young people, to completely transform their lives. And I think that's amazing. I think that's incredible. I think the abundance of content that we have online of people showing how they've transformed their own life and how other people can transform their life is incredible. But I think the downside of this, or one of the things that's missing from this at least, is that it's not that simple or not that straightforward. I think it conflates this idea that the moment you decide to transform your life is going to be this magical moment where it's the before and then the after, and then every step after that is this linear progress upwards, where each step or each day is better than the last. And the reality is that the reality that's missed in this is that you actually have to take quite a few substantially large steps backwards before you get to take the inevitable steps forward that you want to build for the life that you're now building. And in today's video, I kind of wanted to share my experience over the last 8 years transforming my own life and share the phases that I think all of you are going to go through, and some of you may be going through right now, to give you a bit of a heads up so you're not surprised when you encounter them. I don't make this video to be discouraging. I kind of want to share this video to actually encourage you, because you right now may feel like you're on the wrong path and you might actually be exactly where you're supposed to be. And hopefully at the end of this video, you might feel a little bit better about where you are right now. But before I do that, if you're new to my channel and you're wondering, who the fuck is this guy telling me how to change my life on the internet? My name's Noske. I've been a content creator online since 2016. And in the last 2 years, I've taken my online business from really struggling to scrape by and mostly making my money with freelance to 7 figures a year. And now through this YouTube channel, I want to share with you guys the tools, the techniques, the strategies, the systems I've used to do so, to help some of you do the same. So there are kind of 5 key phases that I experienced in my own life since 2017 or 2016, when I made that decision to kind of completely transform my life, to all the way to now, where I still firmly put myself in the position of someone that is actively trying to achieve the life that I want. I know it's kind of a negative thing to talk about wanting or desire, because it kind of puts where you are and where you want to be on 2 different paths, and you won't be happy until you get there. But I think there is this reality that if you want to build a life that you're actually proud of, if you want to do things that you're proud of, there is going to be a delta between where you are and where you want to be. And that's okay. There's no problem with that. But part of that reality is understanding that that delta is going to exist. The place that you are right now and where you want to be aren't the same place. And you're going to recognize that more so than ever in the beginning of your own journey. So phase 1, and the thing that I'm sure a lot of you have either recently gone through or are going through right now, is curiosity. The curiosity phase is when you've kind of caught a glimpse of someone else living something that you may have previously seen as impossible. For me, it was discovering characters like Peter McKinnon, Sam Calder, these people online sharing their creativity and making an incredible living doing so. Because I grew up in a time, not that long ago, I'm not that old, I'm only 27, but when I was in high school, the prospect of being an artist full time was impossible. I loved drawing and painting. It was all I ever wanted to do. All of my spare periods at school were spent in the art class, in my sketchbook, drawing. I loved it. It was the one thing I think I've ever felt like I had some talent for. I always grew up kind of hearing from my siblings, hearing from my family, hearing from relatives, like, you're pretty good at drawing, you should do this. And I think that created this desire or this passion for doing it. But when I grew up, the only thing that I was ever recommended to do was like architecture and design. And I didn't really have an interest in doing either of those things. So after that point, I always kind of saw my creativity. I always saw everything that I'd done as a hobby. I was like, it's a cool skill, it's something I have, but it's not something I can ever turn into a career. That was just impossible to me. I didn't even really make the distinction between famous artists and me, because the delta between, someone like a Basquiat or a Salvador Dali and myself was an impossible, vast ocean to cross. So I didn't even bother with that prospect. But then that curiosity phase kicked in where I found myself just unsatisfied enough with the life that I was living. I wasn't like, I'm not going to inflate my story and say that I was incredibly unhappy or incredibly depressed. I've gone through my hardships, but that wasn't what led to this change. I was just unsatisfied enough. But then I paired that with the discovery of these people online, sharing their creativity and making an incredible living doing so. And that led to my curiosity for change. And I think that's a really pivotal phase in transforming your life, because it's the first moment where you discover a possibility that you can live the life that you actually want. And I think as much as possible, if you haven't had that moment yet, expose yourself to new opportunities, expose yourself to new hobbies, expose yourself to new people. Do as much as you can to put yourself in the position to experience that moment. For some of you, it might not happen on social media. For some of you, it might happen through a family member. It might happen through someone at a club that you're a part of, as a friend, or something in your life is going to show you a reality that you previously saw as impossible. Now, this is a good phase. This is a positive phase. This is a moment where you genuinely take a step forward, because previously you found yourself in one place and now you've taken a massive step forward in the fact or the reality that you now know something exists. But phase two, even though you've taken this incredible step forward, is resentment. I and everyone I know who's changed their life, and everyone I've spoken to, and I'm sure, and a massive amount of you guys have experienced resentment. That moment where you've discovered that you want to change your life. You've made a little bit of progress. Maybe you've started studying something, you picked up a new hobby, you've started working towards building something. But it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. In the beginning, you're ambitious and you're excited and you think you're way better than you are. But as soon as you cross that lip into building your own experience, the more that you experience, the more skills you build, the more you realize the delta between where you are and where you want to be. And that's resentment. I experienced this moment viscerally when I both discovered how hard it was for the people that I admired to make the content they were making and how terrible my content was. But I also discovered this in some other area of my life. Back in 2018, I first discovered Graham Stephan. As I'm sure a lot of you guys know Graham Stephan online, because I had kind of for the first time in my life realized that I needed to build financial skills. I had terrible focus in high school. I didn't really listen in financial maths. I didn't have any desire to learn any of that sort of stuff. And I found myself kind of financially illiterate. I also grew up in a family that had their own financial hardships that led to a number of issues. And as a result, I had this desire to not let that happen again in my own life. And so I decided to start learning finance or personal finance. And immediately, as soon as I started discovering that, as soon as I started working towards it, I began to resent the fact that I was at the time 21 or 20 years old and had only achieved or had achieved very, very little up until that point. And these people I admired at my age had achieved far more than I had. I was learning about investing, I was learning about ETFs, I was learning about index funds, but I had barely enough money to get me through the week, let alone invest in anything. And that didn't create inspiration, that didn't create a desire to change, that actually created resentment. And there was a long period of time where I actually stopped studying these people. I stopped learning, I stopped investing in these skills, and I just kind of put it to the back burner. Because that resentment that I felt, that kind of insecurity I felt for my own lot in life compared to the lot of the people that I was looking up to, kind of just made me bitter and resentful. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's completely normal. I think as you learn, as you build the skill, as you realize how far you have to go, it becomes more and more uncomfortable kind of acknowledging that reality. And I'm sure a lot of you are in this place where you know you want to change, you know how to change, and you know how long it's going to take you to get there, but you fucking hate hearing about how much further along the people you admire are than you are right now. And I just say this to let you know that that feeling is normal. I had that feeling back in 2018. I'm sure I will have this feeling again. I regularly sometimes have this feeling if I'm learning something new, if I'm trying to build my business and I see someone else who's way younger than I am and has achieved way more than I have, I still feel those feelings. And I think hearing that phase 2 of the journey of transforming your life is actually a massive step backwards will hopefully give you the confidence to go into the next phase in this journey. Phase 3 is courage. There is no better way to describe this moment than courage. The reality of this transformation process, the reality of getting through that resentment phase is you need to have the courage to do it. That's it. That moment for me was when I finally stopped worrying about where I was, when I finally acknowledged that for me to make progress, I need to get uncomfortable, and I started investing. For me, I think the first time I invested any money at all, it was like $100 that I put into a company called Stake Online, not Stake the gambling app, Stake, this investing company in Australia, and I bought $100 worth of an ETF that tracked the S&P 500. And that was it. But that moment of courage, that moment of acknowledging where I am and how far I have to go, but also embracing that discomfort and deciding to take action anyway, has led to me now having an investment portfolio worth more than $500,000 at 27 years old. Not including the equity I have in my home, not including my business. All of that progress that I've made over the next 6 years since that moment is a result of that one decision, that one piece of courage to make progress regardless of how I felt. And it's the same with my business. It's the same with any skill I've built. It's the same with me trying to do this YouTube channel now. I don't find it very easy to make these videos. Even though I have built a skill of talking to camera, I still find it quite tough hitting record and getting started and just talking to camera about these things. So there is always going to be that journey or that process of taking action regardless of how you feel. And I think in the process of changing your life and really transforming things for the better, there is going to have to be a moment of courage where you decide or you acknowledge where you are, you see the delta between where you are and where you want to go, and you fucking do it anyway. Which leads me to phase 4. Phase 4 is the breakthrough. It's the moment where things start to click into place. You have a small win that shows you a glimpse of what you may be capable of in the future. It's the moment where a friend acknowledges the progress you've made, or someone or something shows you that you're making progress. This moment can happen a year after you get started, 2 years after you get started, 5 years after you get started, but the moment will happen if you never stop. I think understanding that this moment will come after that courageous moment is really, really important, because there are a lot of you are in that phase between resentment and courage. Maybe you've come off the back of a few inconsistent periods where you go through a phase of feeling inspired and then feeling resentful and then feeling inspired and feeling resentful, and you've finally taken the courage to acknowledge your inconsistency, acknowledge that insecurity that you feel, and take action. I want you to understand that a breakthrough is coming. There is going to be a moment, inevitably, some point in the future where you have that breakthrough moment, where you have that moment of realizing that you're making progress, which then leads to phase 5 and the final phase of changing your life, and that's momentum. I truly think momentum is the reason that I've achieved any of the things that I have. The moment that you get to where you've made so much progress, you've taken so much action, that the prospect of taking no action is completely impossible. I've gotten to the point now where, on a weekly basis, I have things that I have to do. I have things that I know will help me continue to run my business, and those things happen because they need to happen. But at the same time, I have a series of things or a bunch of things that I do every single week that I want to do. And I want to do those things because I'm carrying the momentum of the last 8 years of slowly building towards the life that I now have. There are a lot of things that I could stop doing and rely purely on the things that will continue to run my business, sit back on my laurels, and I'll be fine. But I'm not going to do that because the idea of doing that is actually harder in my mind than just continuing to build over and over and over and over again. And that's entirely down to momentum. I'm sure you've felt this in your own life where maybe you've taken a bit of action. Maybe you've made 7 videos and the 8th is easier than the 7th. And then the 9th is easier than the previous combined. And as you go on and on and on and on, you stack week after week, month after month, year after year, eventually things that were previously fucking impossible for you to do become absolutely effortless for you to do. And I think that's down to phase 5, which is where I find myself now, is momentum. I'll see you next time.